Lesson 5.2, Solving System of Linear Equation by Substitution. Another way to solve a system of linear equation is to use substitution. We'll be using now with two equations. Sometimes it might be more than three equations, but in this instance, we'll be using two equations. Step 1 is solve one of the equations for one of the variables. Step 2 is substitute the expression from step 1 into the other equation and solve for the other variable. And finally, step 3 is substitute the value from step 2 into one of the original equation and solve. Remember, we're solving for x, y, for the points that are going to intercept into the system of linear equations. One thing that could help you is always have one of the equation to slope-intercept form. Okay, turn it into slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. Another key thing that I think will help you a lot, especially with integers, is write your variables within, when replacing substituted, in parentheses, okay? It will kind of help you see your integers where you are at, if it's negative or positive. So for example, here in example 1 is we're going to solve the system of a linear equation by substitution. Here I can see that I have what? That first equation as a slope-intercept form. So that's in a way it's going to help me to figure out everything quickly. So the first thing I should do is the second equation, I'm going to replace where I see, let me highlight this for you, where I see y on the second equation, that's where all this is going to go, which is negative 2x minus 9. So I'm going to have to solve for who now? I'm going to solve for x because I'm replacing y. So it's going to have 6x minus 5 times negative 2x minus 9 equals negative 19. This is where I told you to have what? Your variable, when you replace it, put it in parentheses because you're going to have to use distributive property. Even if it's a positive or plus sign over here where the 5 is, I would use still parentheses, okay? So now I'm going to use distributive property, which gives me the negative 5 to the negative 2x and negative 5 times the negative 9. So I'm going to have 6x plus 10x plus 45 equals negative 19. I'm going to combine my alike terms, which gives me 16x plus 45 equals negative 19. I'm going to subtract. Remember, we're solving for x, 45 to both sides, and I'm left with 16x equals negative 64. If I was to divide this, I'm going to divide it by 16. X gives me 2, negative what? Negative 4. Now, if we recall from the previous slide, we're going to replace now. So you're going to pick any of the two equations. To me, I like to use the one in the slope-intercept form because it's already going to tell me what y equals. So replacing, I'm going to have y equals, this is the one we're doing, y equals negative 2 times what I have done before, which gives me the negative 4. Negative 4 minus 9. I know that negative 4 times negative 2 gives me positive 8 minus 9. Therefore, y equals negative 1. The solution for the linear equation will be negative 4, negative 1. In this example, we have both equations in standard form. So you need to turn one into a what? Slope-intercept form, which I'm going to use this one. Y is already left as a positive, so it's going to be y equals, when I transfer that negative x over to the other side, it's going to give me positive x, and I know the 3 is already positive, so it's going to be y equals plus 3. And I'm going to start doing now the substitution, right? So I'm going to have 3x plus, where y is, remember, x plus 3 equals negative 1. I'm going to combine my like terms. Once I do distributive property, I'm going to have 3x plus 3 equals negative 1. Distributive, I'm going to combine alike terms, which gives me 4x plus 3 equals negative 1. Subtracted 3 to both sides. I'm left with 4x equals negative 4. Divide by 4, and I've solved for x. X equals negative 1. I'm going to use now substitution for the negative 1 to the x. You're going to use with whichever equation. I'm going to use the bottom one. It's going to be 3 times negative 1 plus y equals negative 1. 3 times negative 1 gives me negative 3 plus y equals negative 1. I'm going to add 3 to both sides. Y equals 2. So the solution will be negative 1, 2. Notice I use the second equation just so you could see that both equations will give you, when you're solving both equations, depending on which one you start, will both should give you the same x and your same y. Let's practice. Number 1, both of them are in slope-intercept form, so you just pick whichever one. So I'm going to have here, replace y with the negative 4x. So I'm going to have negative 4x equals 3x plus 14. I'm going to combine my terms to the other side. So I'm going to cancel out negative 3x with 3x equals 14. Negative 4x minus 3x gives me negative 7x. Divide by negative 7. And x equals negative 2. Now I'm going to use this bottom equation, the second equation, to solve for y. So y equals negative 4 times the negative 2 from the x that I solved earlier. So therefore y equals 8. The solution for this linear system will be negative 2, 8. On the second equation, question number 2, the second equation is already in slope-intercept form. So all I have to do is now use substitution. So I'm going to have 3x plus 2 times half x minus 1 equals 0. I'm going to do distributive property, which gives me 2 times half and 2 times negative 1. Once I distribute, I'm going to have 3x. Half of 2 is positive x, correct? Because it's 1x. Remember, we have the imaginary 1 there. And 2 times negative 1 gives me negative 2 equals 0. Combine your like terms, which is 3x plus x gives me 4x minus 2 equals 0. Add 2 to both sides. I'm left with 4x equals 2. Divide by 4. X equals half. I'm going to use this half right here, the second equation, which already tells me y equals, correct? Y equals half times half minus 1. And I know that half times half times half is 1/4, correct? Minus 1. 1/4 minus 1 gives me y equals negative 3/4. So the solution to this linear system will be half and negative 3/4. In number 3, you have where it says x equals 6y minus 7. That just means that we could start solving automatically for what? For y instead of before we solve for x. So we could use substitution, same as well. So we're going to have 4 times 6y, which remember we're replacing, minus 7 plus y equals negative 3. We're going to do our distributive property, which is 4 times 6y and 4 times negative 7, which gives us 24y minus 28 plus y equals negative 3. Combine your like terms, which is 24y and y gives us 25y minus 28 equals negative 3. Move over your negative 28 over by adding 28, which cancels out. 25y equals 25. When it's negative 3 plus 28. Divide 25 on both sides and y equals 1. Replacing it, we're solving for x. So I'm going to use this equation, the x equals 7y minus 7. Because it's already telling me what x is. So it's going to be x equals 6y, which times 1 minus 7, right? From our y. So 6, this gives us 6 right over here. X equals 6 minus 7 gives us negative 1. So the solution to the linear system is negative 1, 1. We here still have, in number 4, we have a standard form. So I'm going to use this one for my slope-intercept form equation. So it's going to be y. Once I transfer the x over, it's going to become negative x minus 2. Substitute where I'm going to have negative 3x plus negative x minus 2 equals 7. Using distributive property, if I'm adding that positive to the negative and that positive to the negative 2, correct? So I'm going to have 3x minus x, and a positive times a negative gives me negative 2 equals 6. Combine your like terms, which gives me negative 4x minus 2 equals 6. Add 2 to both sides. I'm left with negative 4x equals 8. Divide by negative 4, x equals negative 2. I use this equation over here, the second equation, which gives me negative 3x. No, we have to use substitution, which is negative 2 plus y equals 6. I know this becomes positive 6 plus y equals 6. Switch over my 6. On the other side, y equals 0. The solution to a linear system is negative 2, 0. In number 5, I'm going to move equation 1 into slope-intercept form, which is going to give me y equals x, positive x because it's on the other side, x minus 4. Substitution, 4x minus parentheses x minus 4 equals 10. I'm still going to do distributive property, which gives me 4x. A negative times x gives me negative x. And negative times a negative 4 gives me positive 4. That's why it's important that you can see to use a parenthesis so you could see the difference. If not, you would have written it as 4 being negative. Equals 10. Combine your like terms, which just gives me 3x plus 4 equals 10. Move over your 4, and I'm left with 3x equals 6 divided by 3, x equals 2. Substitute this right over here, which gives me 4x. You could use any of the two equations, or even the new equations. If you see it, let's use the slope-intercept form equation, which was this one, which it gives you y, because it's already in a y format, y equals 2 minus 4, correct, for x. Y equals negative 2. So the solution to this linear system is 2, negative 2. Number 6, solve the system of linear equation by substitution. We're going to use 1. I normally just use the first one, but you could always see what numbers will be easiest for you. In this case, I'm just going to use the first equation, which I'm going to be left with negative y equals negative 2x minus 5. You cannot have a negative variable as a slope-intercept form, so you're just going to have to divide everything here by negative 1. So you're going to be left with y equals positive 2x plus 5. That's what we're going to use for our substitution. So we're going to have 3x minus 2x plus 5 equals 1. Use your distributive property with that minus sign in front of it, which is a negative. So it's going to have 3x minus 2x minus 5 equals 1. You're going to combine your like terms, which gives me 3x minus 2x gives me x minus 5 equals 1. Add 5 to both sides, and you have x equals 6. Substitute, I'm going to substitute this equation of y. I have y equals 2 times 6 plus 5. I know that 2 times 6 gives me 12 plus 5. Y equals 17. So the solution to this linear system is 6, 17. In question 7, I see the variable x on its own. So I'm going to have the equation stand for x, correct? So I'm going to have x equals, when I move over my negative 2y, becomes what? Positive 2y plus 7. And start using substitution. So I'm going to have 3 times 2y plus 7 minus 2y equals 3. Distributive property, which gives me 6y plus 21 minus 2y equals 3. Combine my alike terms, which is 6y minus 2y gives me 4y plus 21 equals 3. Subtract 21 from both sides. 4y equals negative 18. Going to divide by 4, and y equals, simplify this, which is negative 9 over 2. I'm going to solve for x, I'm going to use this equation. So x equals 2 times negative 9 over 2 plus 7. 2 times negative 9 gives me negative 18 over 2 times 1 is 2 plus 7. I'm able to simplify this to negative 9 plus 7, which gives me x gives me negative 2. The solution to this linear system is negative 9 over 2.